What's going on, everybody? It's ShamefulPenguin here, back with another video. Today we're getting into 5 builds I recommend for 3.17 Archnemesis League. This league also comes with a new content expansion, which is Siege of the Atlas. Siege of the Atlas changes up the endgame, where we would fight Cyrus and the Conquerors. Is now changed to 2 new bosses and their new influences on gear. I'm not going to go into all the in-depth explaining of all the big changes, but just keep in mind that Conquerors aren't the same endgame, so their influenced items are going to be a lot more rare. We're thinking it's going to be a lot more rare in general, so keep that in mind when you're making the builds, because if there's pieces of gear that require influenced items that were used in last league, it's not going to be the same. So keep that in mind when you're picking a build for your own. So let's get into these 5 builds. The first build today is going to be the Posionous Concoction Pathfinder or Occultist. Both of these ascendancies are very strong with this build. The Pathfinder is the easiest brain dead choice because flask effect scaling, anything that has to do with flasks, you generally choose Pathfinder. You got a lot of movement speed, you get poison prolif, you get flask effect, you get a lot of stuff and a lot of uptime on your flasks. So Pathfinder is a very simple choice. It seems to be the more defensive choice and the speedier choice, but Occultist seems to be more of an end game. You get the poison, you get the Occultist pops, you get the additional curse and additional damage, easy way to scale energy shield. So a lot of great things going on for Occultist as well. So either choice is very, very strong. This build takes advantage of Poisonous Concoction, but poison does have ramp time to its damage. It doesn't immediately pop off in damage. It's not like an on-hit effect where it's like when you say 3 mil DPS, you can expect that right when you hit it. Poison, you just kind of have to ramp the damage because it's a stacking multiplier. And yeah, so when you're doing this poison damage, you gotta keep in mind that it is a ramping damage. Otherwise, Poison Concoction is a really good build, really good at clearing early game and end game, really easily scaling. You can do a lot of end game content. You can pretty much do all end game content. It is not the best boss killer, but it can do all the bosses for sure. Many people have done it. For racing to the highest level, this build's one of the best at it because just how easily it can clear maps and how non-gear dependent it is. You just get the best flask you can and you're going to be doing a ton of damage. The second build we're going to be getting into is Explosive Arrow Totems. Now this build is probably the most popular build this league, and it's been theorized for a while. It is an ignite based build and everything about it is getting buffed, so it looks to be one of the most popular builds. A lot of big content creators are picking up on it, but the ones I'm going to be recommending to you guys are Zizzarin's Hierophant and Champion and Tuna's Elementalist. Now Champion and Hierophant are the 2 tankier versions of this build, where Champion is just absolute tank fest, take hits very well, and Hierophant is the middle ground where it's comes online faster. You get the extra totems, totem damage, and you have some good damage mitigation. And then you get the Elementalist version by Tuna, where you're just juicing damage as much as you can. It will have a lot of defenses through auras and all that kind of stuff, but in general it is the less tanky but more damage version. So whatever your preference is on your playstyle, you get to choose one of these. It's going to be a very strong build. The explosive arrow stacks, so the more explosive arrows, the more damage, and then ignite will pick the highest damage that it currently does. So it comes online very fast, very strong build. It's going to be really good at clearing with the ignite prolif, and it's going to be very strong with just flat ignite damage being through the roof. The next build I'm going to be talking about is the Spectral Helix Poison Assassin or Occultist. Both of these builds are going to be very strong. The first one we're going to go over is by Jungron, the Assassin Perfect Agony. So this combines getting crit and crit multi to scale with actually your poison over damage over time multiplier. And this is very strong because there's a bunch of cheap uniques that can make this crit scale very well with poison, and it's just a bunch of free damage on top of using Nightblade just to have permanent elusive and crit multi on your build just to make you do a ton of extra damage. Now this build has been shown to be able to do pretty much all content in very low gear, very cheap uniques, and it's going to be a very, very strong build that is perfectly viable for racing if you're interested in that, or just doing all content no brain. The next version I'm going to be talking about is by Zizarin. It's the Occultist version. It does have Occultist pops, which are very nice. A bunch of damage scaling, and just Occultist is very overall good because you get all those curses, and you get your hexproof, all that kind of stuff. So you're a little more defensive on the Zizarin version. Zizarin always makes your builds a little more tanky and hardcore viable. So that's something to keep in mind for which one you feel like choosing. Now, I would recommend for hardcore, you could actually go either one. Softcore seems like the Assassin has more DPS overall, so keep that in mind when you're choosing your versions. The fourth build I'll be recommending is the SkeleMages Necromancer. Now, this build is very, very strong because of the potential damage it has to do. High end, it can do a crazy amount of damage. In 3.16, it farmed wave 30 simulacrums no problem. It does have a bunch of expensive uniques if you get into the very end game, but on a low budget, there are things you can do just to have really good consistent damage. I'm recommending this build to you guys because there's going to be a lot more bosses and a lot more end game grinds to do this league, and if you're interested in farming bosses, SkeleMages might be the way to go, just because of how fast, how consistently they can do bosses no problem. Now, the first version I'm recommending is by K Gaming. She has just a zombie mancer, whatever you want to call it, just like all minions, very low gear, low budget, shows you how to level through all the acts. And then the second version is by Gazzy, where he does the specific SkeleMages, where he shows the medium to high tier budget for the SkeleMages, what to do, and how to scale your damage very well. So this build is really good at boss killing. It does not do too well at farming maps super fast, so keep that in mind when you're picking this build. And the last choice for the build is the Corrupting Fever Kinetic Blast Gladiator. Now you can go with Tornado Shot, Corrupting Fever as well, but Kinetic Blast was the version I preferred, and it was very popular last league as a map farmer. This build is crazy fast at map farming. You can do really high tier juiced maps no problem. Bossing is a bit of a problem on this build, but if you're interested in just strictly mapping as fast as you can, getting all the currency, being a full juicer boy, this is the build for you. Zizarin and Grimro both have variations of their build, where Grimro goes from Kinetic Blast to Tornado Shot in the end game once he gets a really good bow, and Zizarin and other content creators like to stay as Kinetic Blast throughout the entire end game. So it's totally up to you whether you want to play Kinetic Blast or go and change into Tornado Shot in your end game. Both of them are very viable for the end game, so it's up to you. And I also want to give an honorable mention to Seismic Trap and Detonate Dead. Both of these builds are going to be very, very strong for the boss race that is in 3.17. Both of these builds are just very strong at killing bosses with really minimal gear, doing high amounts of damage, consistent, and being very tanky. So those two builds are going to be popular among that category of players. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to be as popular this league as they were in the previous leagues. Now, that's pretty much it for the video. That's all the builds that I think are going to be very popular this league. I didn't really add too many flavor choices, unfortunately. I can always add Stormbrand in another build. Let's be real. I'm a Stormbrand boy. But yeah, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Make sure you leave a like, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.